Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis and welcome to this video lesson. We're going to continue talking about C++ arrays. Specifically, I wanted to talk to you about two-dimensional arrays. So let me switch over here to Visual Studio so that I can show you this program that I've already created about two-dimensional arrays. I'm also going to talk to you about string streams. Let me run the program so I can demonstrate what it is that I'm going to be talking about. So are you ready to display a 5 by 5 multiplication table? Yes, I am. So I'm going to press Y and press Enter. All right, so this is what I'm going to create. A simple 5 by 5 multiplication table. So for example, 2 times 3, here's the column, here's the row, that's 6. 5 times 5, that's 25, so forth and so on. So you see one way of displaying the data, and then here I'm going to show you that there's another way of displaying the data using a string stream. Well, first of all, let me talk about the two-dimensional array. Arrays are nothing more than a collection of data. We already know that from our previous lecture. But I can make multiple arrays or multiple dimensioned arrays, and in this case this is an example of a two-dimensional array. So I want you to think of a two-dimensional array like a table. A single-dimensional array is like a row or a column. A two-dimensional array is like a table with a row and a column. So that's why you see over here I've created a constant called row size. I've also created another constant called column size. And so this multiplication table is a two-dimensional array. It has rows and it has columns. So think of graph paper, say for example, with rows and columns. That's exactly what this is. And I can define the size over here. Okay, so I'm also going to create an output string, and I'm also going to create this output string stream. And so in order to do that, notice that I've had to include this library, the string stream library. And what that allows me to do is to send out commands like set W into a string stream. You can't do that with a regular string. Excuse me. So what I'm going to show you later on is how I can use the string stream to use different manipulation techniques. And so that means that I also have to include the IOmanip library as well, in addition to the string library. All right, so why don't I go ahead and ask the user, are you ready to display a multiplication table? If they are, then we're going to display the information via this if statement, and then if they are not, then we'll say, okay, no table for you, right? In honor of the soup Nazi from the famous television show from Jerry Seinfeld. All right, so what we're going to do over here is in the if statement, if the user really does want to display this, the user choice is either going to be capital Y or it's going to be lowercase y. So that's the or statement. If the user entry is either one of those characters, then we're going to proceed. And so the first thing that we need to do is that you can see here, this is a nested statement that populates the two-dimensional array. All right, so what I want to do is I want to place numbers into the two-dimensional array. And so I'm going to have to populate every single row and every single column. So notice that I have an inner for loop and I also have an outer for loop. The inner for loop is going to be responsible for populating all of the columns for a given row. So for row 0, column 0, 1, 2, 3, so forth and so on. For however many columns that we have, we're going to place the multiplication of that given number into that particular item. All right, so notice that for me to multiply these two numbers to put the appropriate number there, I'm going to have to take the row counter, which starts off at 0, that's why I add 1. The column counter, which starts off at 0, that's why again I add 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. 1 is going to go into that first square. So what I mean by first square is this square right here, right? Because 1 times 1, I need to put a 1 in this array element. And then 1 times 2, I need to put a 2 in this particular array element, and so forth and so on. All right, so that's what this inner loop does. It populates the two-dimensional array with the correct multiplication answers. All right, so once I've done that, now let's go ahead and display a multiplication table. So we're going to output this into multiplication format. Okay, so we're going to create an output for the first row. So in other words, notice when I run the program that I have these top numbers over here to indicate the columns, and then I have a row of asterisks, and then beginning with each row, I have the multiplying number over here, 1 through 5, because these numbers are going to be multiplied times these numbers, and the answers are going to be displayed over here. So that's what I'm talking about. Here I'm going to display the appropriate first row. So the first thing I have is a space that I'm going to send to the output. Now in terms of that string stream that I was talking about earlier, first of all, notice that I declared a string stream. There it is. Output string stream. That's what that OSS is going to be an abbreviation for. The only way that I could create this is if I included this string stream library. So after including that, we're going to create a string stream, which is nothing more than giving me the ability to send out items to a string, but it also allows me to include other things like the setW command, which I'll show you in just a moment. All right, so what I'm going to do in this for statement is you'll notice that I'm going to be displaying a certain number of spaces, and then I'm going to display a number. So counter starts off at 0, so I'll say counter plus 1, and then some spaces after. So when I run the program, notice that I have spaces before, I have the number, spaces after, spaces before, I have the number, spaces after, spaces before, so forth and so on. All right, that's this part right here. This for statement is taking care of those spaces before, a number, and then spaces after. And then in this case, I'm also sending the same information to the output string stream. Okay, so that takes care of that first row. Now we need to go to the beginning of the next line, because as you can see when I run the program, I finish that first row, I go to the next line to get ready to display all these asterisks. Instead of me closing this, let me just go back over here. All right, and so that's what this part is over here. So I'm going to output, go to the beginning of the next line. Same thing with the string stream. Let's go to the beginning of the next line. I'm going to output a bunch of asterisks. You'll see that I have a couple of preceding spaces. That's this part right here, the preceding space. And I want to do that because I want to make sure that when I write the numbers for each row, that there is no asterisk over here. That's why I need to bump it over a little bit. All right, so I output this line of asterisks, same thing to the string stream. I'm going to send it that same line of information. All right, and so then we have our for statement to get ready to output the rest of the table. So notice that I have a for statement that's going to take care of every single row. Before I go into every single column, I'm going to output a space. I'll do that via the cout statement. I'll also send it to my output string stream, and so that's going to be this. Well, actually, let me go back over here. Let's see what I have here. Okay, so I have all this. Go to the beginning of the next line, cout a space. All right, so that's going to be the initial space over here. And as you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm going to go to every single column. I'm going to output the asterisk. Okay, so here's an asterisk and a space. And so now, after that, I'm going to output a set width of 3, and so that means that I have, within these 3 spaces, I have to output the number. Specifically, the number that I'm going to output is from this multiplication table for this given row, for this given column. And then after that, I output a space. So what that's going to do is within these next 3 spaces, so 1, 2, 3, I'm going to output the actual number, and then as you can see over here, it's going to output a space, and so, or a couple of spaces, and so those are the spaces that you see after this. And so I'm going to do that for the entire row. I'm just going to simply duplicate all of this for the output string stream. With the output string stream, notice what I'm doing. I don't have an assignment operator. I'm going to send this out to the output string stream, similar to the way that I would use a cout statement. But this is going into an object. And what am I sending? The exact same information that you saw above. Now the one difference that I have over here is I wanted to show you the usage of the toString. What toString does is it just takes a number and converts it to a string. And so since I'm going to be outputting a bunch of strings, that's exactly what I've done here. I'm simply sending it out as a string. You don't have to do that for the cout statement, so that's why I didn't. You can if you want to. It doesn't hurt anything. I just wanted to make sure that you are introduced to this toString function, which simply says, you know, give me whatever, a number, a whole number, a real number, whatever, and I'm going to convert that to a string and send it out. And then, of course, I send out a space, just like I did over here for the cout statement. So we keep on doing this over and over and over again, and what this is going to do is display the entire row. So it displays this information first, then second, third, fourth, fifth, so forth and so on. Now that we're finished with that particular row of data, let's go to the next column. But before we do that, we better send out an asterisk. And so that's this asterisk over here. Then we go to the beginning of the next line. So we print the asterisk, go to the beginning of the next line. Same thing for the output string stream. And then we go to the for statement. Now we do the next row, and the next row, and the next row, so forth and so on. Once we're finished with that, we're going to go ahead and output the spaces and the asterisks, and that's going to be that last line right here. So a couple of spaces and then a row of asterisks. That's what this is over here. Same thing for the output string stream, but notice what I'm doing over here. I'm going to take that output string stream that we've been working with, and then I'm going to use the .str function, and what that does is it basically takes your output string stream, converts it into a string. Notice that I am concatenating that with the space and the asterisk, which is going to be responsible for drawing that bottom line right here, right? And then I'm going to send this to a string, or I'm sorry, into an output string, which I've declared up here. So let me go back over here to show you that. I've declared output as a string. Initially it's nothing. Well, now it's about to be populated with whatever I've sent out to the output string stream. So now I can send it over here. And now that I'm finished, I can go ahead and say cout, whatever the output happens to be. And that's how we get this top part over here, which is generated by the cout statement. This part over here was generated by the output string stream. I didn't have to do both of these. I could have just done one, but I'm just showing you a couple of alternatives in terms of how to deal with outputting formatted content to the screen. And so that's pretty much it. The big thing is the two-dimensional array that I've created over here. You just have to think of rows and columns, and in essence you're forming a table. Now, can I create a three-dimensional array? Absolutely. You would think about that as stacks of sugar cubes, and imagine that each of those sugar cubes is holding a value. And so you would have an x, a y, and a z axis, say for example. Over here with our multiplication table, we have an x axis and we have a y axis, say for example. So again, you can create as many dimensions as you want when it comes to arrays, and in this case it's an example of a two-dimensional array. Alright, so that's it. This is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. You have a good day. We'll see you next time.